On the afternoon of June 15, 2021, what began as an ordinary summer day in the hills of rural Tennessee and would soon become one of America's most haunting missing child cases. A 5-year-old girl named Summer Wells seemingly vanished, then without a trace from her family's property in the small community of Beach Creek, near Rogersville.
So there were no confirmed sightings after that afternoon, no ransom demands, no surveillance footage capturing exactly what happened,
and no definitive physical evidence pointing investigators toward a clear answer. More than 3 years later, the disappearance then continues to puzzle law enforcement, investigators, and millions of people across the United States who have followed. Because every development, hoping that one day the mystery will finally be solved. But before examining the investigation,
so it's important to understand the setting where this story began. The Wells family lived on a secluded property
and surrounded by dense woods, steep hillsides, narrow roads, and rugged terrain. While the peaceful landscape offered privacy, it also isolated her.
Then it also presented enormous challenges for emergency responders. Thick vegetation, uneven ground, abandoned structures, and countless
acres of forest could quickly complicate any search operation, especially when every passing minute mattered. And on that Tuesday, Summer spent much of the day with her mother, Candace Wells, and other family. According to public statements made by Candace, they had been running errands earlier that day.
Because including visits to local businesses before returning home, photos and videos from earlier in the afternoon later,
though, became widely circulated online as people attempted to reconstruct Summer's final known hours. After arriving back, and at the property, Candace has said that Summer went inside the house for a short time, then before asking to play outside with her older brothers. According to Candace's account, she watched Summer
walk toward the area near the basement entrance. A few moments later, after telling Summer to
and stay close to the house. Candace said she returned inside. When she checked again, Summer was gone. But at first, the family reportedly searched the property themselves, calling Summer's name and checking the then surrounding woods. When those efforts produced no sign of the little girl, authorities were contacted.
So the emergency call initiated what would quickly become one of the largest missing child search operations in
Tennessee history. Deputies from the Hawkins County Sheriff's Office responded alongside investigators from the Tennessee, then Bureau of Investigation, commonly known as the TBI, as the seriousness of the situation became clear. So additional agencies joined the effort, including the Federal Bureau of Investigation, search teams, K-9 units, drones, and forensics.
And helicopters, mounted patrols, specialized rescue personnel, and hundreds of volunteers descended upon the remote property.
Then over the following days, thousands of acres were searched using every available resource. Searchers navigated dense because forests, climbed steep embankments, checked creeks and ponds, examined abandoned vehicles, inspected sheds and nearby buildings, and carefully documented every location that might contain evidence. The terrain itself became one of the investigations.
And greatest obstacles. Thick underbrush reduced visibility to only a few feet in places, while rocky hillsides
and ravines slowed search crews. Investigators understood that a missing 5-year-old could quickly become vulnerable to dehydration, exposure, or injury, making the first hours critically important. As the search expanded, and law enforcement repeatedly emphasized that they were considering every possibility. At that early stage, investigators then had not ruled out the possibility that Summer had wandered away, but they also stated publicly that they could not eliminate the possibility of an abduction, because there was no confirmed evidence.
So explaining how she disappeared, investigators were careful not to focus exclusively on any single theory.
Then instead, they asked the public for assistance, requesting surveillance footage from nearby homes and businesses,
and tips regarding suspicious activity, and any information that might help establish Summer's movements that afternoon.
So within days, the case drew national media attention. Television networks across the United States began then covering the disappearance. Missing person organizations distributed photographs of Summer, describing her as approximately 3 feet and tall with blue eyes and blonde hair that had been cut very shortly before.
Because her disappearance, the distinctive haircut became a point of discussion online. although investigators consistently urged
so the public to focus on credible information rather than rumors, as often happens in high-profile town. Then missing child cases, public attention brought both benefits and challenges. On one hand, widespread media coverage and generated thousands of tips from across the country. Every report, no matter how unlikely it,
because initially appeared, required investigators to evaluate whether it could be connected to Summer's disappearance.
So, on the other hand, social media quickly became flooded with speculation, unverified claims, and theories, and unsupported by evidence. Law enforcement repeatedly reminded the public that rumors could distract from the then investigation and urged anyone with factual information to contact authorities directly rather than posting speculation.
So online. During the first several weeks, investigators conducted numerous interviews with family members, neighbors,
and individuals who had interacted with the Wells family. Detectives sought to establish then a precise timeline of events leading up to Summer's disappearance. They reviewed cell phone records, analyzed, because digital evidence where appropriate, examined vehicles, and attempted to determine whether anyone unusual had been
seen near the property. As part of standard investigative procedure in missing child cases, those
and closest to the child were interviewed multiple times. Such interviews are routine and should be interpreted as evidence of guilt. Investigators often revisit earlier statements as new information becomes available, looking for inconsistencies, clarifications, or overlooked details. The FBI also contributed specialized
in resources, including behavioral analysis, forensic expertise, and child abduction investigators. Federal involvement reflected the
then seriousness of the case rather than any conclusion about what had occurred. Despite the extraordinary,
Because scale of the search, days passed without a confirmed sighting of Summer. Search teams covered
though in Norse's sections of wilderness, yet no definitive evidence emerged explaining where she had gone.
and this absence of evidence gradually shifted public discussion. If Summer had wandered into the surrounding
In woods, many wondered why trained search teams equipped with advanced technology had been unable to locate her. At the same time, investigators cautioned against drawing premature conclusions. And wilderness can present extraordinary challenges, and missing person cases have demonstrated
then not always produce immediate answers. As weeks turned into months, the investigation entered a
because new phase. Rather than focusing primarily on physical searches, detectives increasingly concentrated on reconstructing
so Summer's final known movements and identifying any individual who might possess relevant information. Authorities
and continued following leads from across the country, investigating reported sightings, reviewing surveillance footage,
then and pursuing tips generated through media coverage. The TBI consistently reiterated one central message.
so they had not identified a suspect, had not confirmed that an abduction had occurred, and had not ruled out any investigative possibilities. That careful wording reflected the reality then investigators faced. Without definitive physical evidence, the case remained open to multiple explanations.
That is the key takeaway I want everyone to consider today. It fundamentally changes how we approach the next decade of development.
So programs and online creators analyzed the timeline in extraordinary detail. Some discussions focused
And on the family's public interviews, while others examined the challenging geography of the property.
then or explored broader questions about missing child investigations. Although these discussions increased awareness, so also generated countless unsupported theories. Law enforcement repeatedly emphasized that online speculation should be handled with caution and not be mistaken for evidence, and that the investigation would be guided by verifiable
Than facts rather than public opinion. Even as media attention fluctuated, investigators maintained that
because the case remained active. Search warrants, forensic examinations, witness interviews, and tip evaluations, though continued behind the scenes. Missing child investigations often extend far beyond the initial weeks visible, and to the public, involving months or years of detailed investigative work that rarely is ever seen.
then appears in headlines. For Summer's family, each passing day brought renewed uncertainty. Public
So appeals continued, asking anyone with credible information, no matter how insignificant it might, and seem to come forward. Investigators have often noted that even a seemingly minor observation then can become significant when combined with other evidence. Yet despite thousands of leads,
and one of the most extensive search efforts in the state's history, the Central.
So the question remained unanswered. What happened to Summer Wells on June 15, 2021? And that unanswered question continues to define the investigation today, setting the stage for then an inquiry that would become increasingly complex as detectives examined every lead,
timeline, and every possibility in their effort to uncover the truth.
And the first days of the investigation turned into weeks, the search for Summer. Then Wells entered a new and more complex phase. The massive ground operation that had brought together hundreds of trained searchers, law enforcement officers, and volunteers.
So had covered thousands of acres surrounding the family's property, yet no confirmed trace.
And of the 5-year-old had been found. Search teams had navigated dense, then forests, steep ravines, creeks, abandoned structures, and difficult mountain terrain, using drones, helicopters, K-9 units, and specialized search and rescue resources. Despite those efforts, investigators
faced one of the most challenging situations in any missing child case, the absence
then of definitive physical evidence explaining what had happened, rather than signaling the end of the investigation. The conclusion of the large-scale search marked the beginning of a painstaking investigative process. Detectives from the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation
and the Hawkins County Sheriff's Office and the Federal Bureau of Investigation continued,
then working behind the scenes, carefully reconstructing Summer's final known hours. Every movement, so every phone call, every interview, and every reported sighting was examined in an effort to establish the most accurate timeline possible. Investigators reviewed digital,
then evidence, interviewed witnesses multiple times, analyzed available surveillance footage from businesses visited.
Because earlier that day, and followed thousands of tips submitted from across the
United States. Authorities repeatedly emphasized that no piece of information was considered
and too small if it could help explain Summer's disappearance. Throughout the
then investigation, officials remained careful in their public statements. They consistently explained that
they had not identified a suspect, had not confirmed that Summer, and had been abducted, and had not ruled out any investigative possibility. Then that cautious language reflected the reality of the evidence, or more accurately,
because the lack of conclusive evidence. In many criminal investigations, detectives can
quickly narrow their focus using physical evidence, eyewitness accounts, or surveillance.
And footage. In Summer's case, investigators publicly stated that they did not
then possess evidence allowing them to reach such conclusions. As a result, they continued evaluating multiple possibilities while avoiding speculation. During this period, I needed to cross-reference every suspect, and Summer's family gave numerous interviews to local and national media outlets.
Then her parents, Candace Wells and Dawn Wells, publicly pleaded for information
because that might lead to their daughter's safe return. Those interviews attracted significant public attention, with viewers closely analyzing the family's statements, behavior, and recollections of the day Summer disappeared. Across social media platforms,
then podcasts, and online forums, countless theories emerged regarding what might have.
Some discussions focused on the family's timeline, others questioned
and the extensive searches, while still others proposed entirely different scenarios. However,
then law enforcement repeatedly reminded the public that speculation circulating online should not be mistaken for evidence. Investigators urged anyone with factual information to contact authorities directly rather than relying on rumors shared across
and the internet. As months passed, the volume of online discussion
then continued to grow. The case became one of the most widely
So discussed missing child investigations in recent American history, generating thousands of
voiceover, and videos, articles, podcasts, and social media posts. While this widespread,
then attention kept Summers' name in the public eye. It also,
because it created additional challenges for investigators. Every widely shared rumor had the potential to generate new tips that required valuable investigative resources too. Hi there, we're introducing a new feature where I can read this aloud in a natural human-like voice and verify. Detectives were forced to separate credible information from misinformation,
then ensuring that the investigation remained focused on verifiable facts rather than
so public speculation. Throughout this period, the TBI continued issuing updates
because reminding the public that the case remained active. Investigators stated that,
and they continued pursuing leads, conducting interviews, reviewing evidence, and following. Then information received from the public. Although many people expected dramatic, without announcements or major breakthroughs, experienced investigators understand that long-term missing person
and cases often progress quietly. Significant developments may involve months of
then forensic analysis, repeated witness interviews, or the careful examination of the digital records rather than highly publicized events. One aspect of, because the investigation that attracted considerable attention involved the family's property,
because Summer was last reportedly seen there, investigators conducted
then extensive examinations of the residents and surrounding land.
So were executed as part of the investigative process, allowing detectives
and to document the scene, collect potential evidence, and ensure that then every reasonable avenue had been explored. Such investigative steps are because standard procedure in serious missing child cases and should not be
so interpreted on their own as evidence of criminal wrongdoing. Investigators
and routinely examine locations where a missing person was last believed
then to have been present. Another important part of the investigation
so involved reviewing the day's timeline in remarkable detail. Authorities
and worked to determine exactly where Summer and her family had
then traveled before returning home, who they encountered, and whether, hi there, we're introducing a new feature where I can read this aloud in a natural human-like voice.
Because anyone unusual had been observed near the property. They analyzed
so phone records, digital communications, and other available evidence in
an effort to either confirm or eliminate potential investigative leads.
Then each new piece of information was compared against existing evidence.
This structure, dating back nearly 2 millennia, provides unprecedented insight into early seismic engineering.
Because avoiding premature conclusions. Despite the enormous public interest, investigators have been quiet
and consistently declined to speculate about what they believed had occurred.
Then instead, they reiterated a simple but important message. If
so someone possessed information about Summer's disappearance, they should come
and forward. Missing person investigations often rely on witnesses who initially then believe their information is insignificant. A vehicle noticed on a rural road, an unfamiliar person seen near a convenience.
Because store or a conversation remembered months later can sometimes become
and important when viewed alongside other evidence. That is why
then investigators encouraged the public not to assume that someone else.
So they had already reported what they knew. As the investigation and continued into subsequent years, Summer's photograph remained featured in then national missing child awareness campaigns, organizations dedicated to locating missing,
because children continued distributing age-progressed images to help the public.
So recognize how she might appear as she grows older.
And these updated images serve an important investigative purpose. Children
then can change significantly over time, and age progression technology helps
so ensure that members of the public remain capable of recognizing.
Because a child, even years after their disappearance, law enforcement,
and has repeatedly emphasized that Summers' case remains active and
that investigators continue reviewing information whenever new leads emerge.
so although no publicly announced breakthrough has resolved the mystery,
And authorities have never closed the investigation. For detectives assigned to the case, it becomes personal. Then to missing child cases, persistence is essential. Many long-term, because investigations have ultimately been solved because investigators continued reviewing evidence.
so long after public attention faded, cases once considered impossible
And to solve have been resolved through advances in forensic science. Then renewed witness cooperation or information provided years after the original disappearance. Summers' case serves as a reminder of
and both the strengths and limitations of modern investigations. Today,
then law enforcement agencies have access to advanced forensic techniques because digital evidence analysis, specialized behavioral experts, aerial search technology, so an extensive interagency cooperation. Yet even with these resources,
and some cases remain unresolved when crucial evidence is absent.
then the disappearance of a child without clear physical evidence presents extraordinary investigative challenges, requiring patience, persistence, and, hi there, we're introducing a new feature where I can read this aloud in a natural, human-like voice.
In case is a reminder that behind every headline is
Then a real child, a real family, and a community. So still searching for answers. While public discussion often focuses
and on theories, investigators remain committed to evidence until verifiable, then facts establish what happened on June 15, 2021.
because responsible reporting requires acknowledging the uncertainty that still surrounds the Summer Wells case. For viewers following Summer Wells' story,
Then remain aware of official updates and share verified information, so released by law enforcement. Someone, somewhere, may possess.
and the missing piece that investigators need to understand what then happened that summer afternoon in rural Tennessee. Until that, because day arrives, Summer Wells remains missing, her case remains so open, and investigators continue asking the public for one and thing above all else.
If you know something, then no matter how small it may seem, come forward. So one credible piece of information could be the breakthrough.
And that finally brings answers to one of America's most heartbreaking missing child investigations.